Hey everyone, welcome back to Fina Reads. I'm Fina, and today I want to talk with you about my all-time favorite fantasy book series, which is The Green Riders. And I'm doing that because book 7 is coming out shortly, which is called Winterlight. And if you've seen any of my prior videos, you know that I've been reading, or rereading rather, the entire series for the release, in anticipation of the release. And I really think it is amazing, and more people should read it. So let's talk about it. The Green Rider series today has 7 books and 1 novella. The novella plays between book 6 and book 7. Book 7 is, as I'm filming it, not quite out yet, but the current release date is September 14, 2021. And in light of book 7 coming out, I thought I wanted to put out a review of the entire series. I will keep it completely spoiler-free to get you excited, so you might even pick up the book and then we can talk about it because I need more people to talk about it. Book 7, whew, but let's get to that at a later point. I'm also planning on doing a spoiler review of book 7, which is Winterlight. If you're interested in spoiler reviews of the other 6 books plus the novella, definitely let me know. I'm more than happy to do that. The first book in this series was published back in 1998, so it has been quite some time coming. She is planning on finishing the series with book 8, so there's one more book to come in the series. And then she hopes to write some side stories that play in the same universe. So the series itself, you could say, is a coming-of-age story of Kerrigan, who's our main character. And it plays in a pretty traditional fantasy world with, well, I don't want to spoil it. Let's say it's not entirely traditional. It has some interesting side stories in there. But overall, the majority of it is traditional fantasy. You're in a medieval type setting. You have a castle. You have a king. The king has a messenger service, which is called the Green Riders, hence the name of the series. And Kerrigan is a young girl that in book 1 has some trouble in school and decides to run away. That's how all good stories start, right? And on her way to her father, she discovers one of those Green Riders. Problem is, that Green Rider has 2 arrows sticking out of his back, he's about to die, and he has Kerrigan promise something, kind of his dying wish, if you will, that Kerrigan takes the message that he has to the king. So she is completely overwhelmed with this situation, but says, of course I'll do that, I'll do everything for my king, and I will take care of the message for you. She's taking the horse. The horse's name is Condor. She's taking the horse, jumping on top of it, and there the journey starts. You're thrown into the adventure with book 1, which I really love. I prefer fantasy series, especially longer series, that start with action and that start to slowly growing the world. Personally, I'm not a fan of fantasy series where you get thrown into the world and you get to know everything at once and then you have to figure out your way through it. I struggle with those type of fantasy series, which is probably reason 1 why I really enjoy the Green Rider series. So book 1, The Green Rider, is really the setup of the world. You get to know our main character, you get to know where she is coming from, you get to know her horse, and horses are really important in the series because messenger service on horses. So there's a whole lot of thing going on there. And then you learn a little bit about the magic system, you learn a little bit about the Green Riders themselves, you get to know the king, and that's pretty much all there is. And book 1 is really action-packed. Our main character stumbles from one situation into another because of her taking care of the message from the now dead rider, and just because this is how Kerrigan is. As the series continues, you will get to know her very well, and she is just one of those women who, charges ahead and figures things out, and sometimes they don't go, and sometimes they go wrong. That's just how this is. And this is another reason why I love this series so much, because Kerrigan is a strong woman. She is an amazing character, but she is also flawed and she has weaknesses, which makes her much more human than what I've seen in other fantasy stories where it's just the hero is the hero and they do everything great. So this is really not one of those fantasy stories. Book 2, which is First Rider's Call, In that book, you learn more about the Green Riders and the messenger service itself. You learn more about the main city. So the world it plays in, it's called Sakuridia. I'm sorry, I'm always having a German pronunciation here. Imagine that in English pronunciation. With the capital being Sakur City. And that's what you get to know in book 2. Book 3 then, which is the High King's Tomb. Here you really get to know the world. Now you finally are introduced to the whole country, to all the states that are in the country, to a bunch more of the characters, to what the series is really about, the issues we are facing, all of that. Our messenger Kerrigan is sent on various quests, and throughout that journey you get to learn our enemies, you get to learn get to know other characters, you get to know even more about our king, about the messenger service, etc., etc. And then with book 4, Black Whale, that's the first book where it gets dark. This is not for the faint of heart. We are in the depth of our enemy's camp, and we're really struggling now with figuring out what's going on. How can we protect our world? Kerrigan has grown tremendously at that time, and she has become a very strong character that the world around her relies on. Book 5 is Mirrorside. And if you've listened to some of my reviews, because that's about the time when I started my YouTube channel, is when I started talking about Mirrorside. If you've listened to some of my monthly wrap-ups and TBRs and these types of videos, then you've already heard a little bit about this book. So Mirrorside has the lowest ratings of all the Green Rider books. And that is because in book 5, you learn why this is not necessarily a typical fantasy story in a medieval setting. Just be prepared, this book is different than the other 4 that you've read so far. I personally think it makes the story incredibly unique, and it adds just an element to the series that takes it away from that generic fantasy trope. And that's why, yet another reason, I love this series so much. Book 6, which is Firebrand, is... Man, now we are really in dark territory, and there's no break for our main character. She has to go through so much. She grows emotionally on such a level that I've rarely seen in fantasy series. Book 6 is the big challenge for Kerrigan. Here she really has to figure out who she is, who she wants to be in life, and you will feel with her all the suffering that she has to go through. It just shows how an enemy can really hurt you, and how even a hero can be misguided at times. And then book 7, which is the new one, Winterlight, there's no break between book 6 and book 7. We continue right with the journey. There's even more going on. Book 7 is definitely the fast-paced book of the series. So much is happening at the same time. We are nearing the conclusion with book 8, and you can truly see that. Things are starting to wrap up. More things are happening, of course. There are more challenges for our main character and for all the characters in general in the book. And it's just a wild ride. I had a hard time putting it down, I have to say. I mean, first of all, I was waiting for it for a long time, so of course I had a hard time putting it down. But then there was so much happening on such a quick pace that I just couldn't put it down. I needed to know what was going on with the series. So I hope that gives you a quick overview of how the series is set up. The novella in itself, you don't necessarily need to read that. With a lot of novellas on longer series, it just adds a little bit side stories. It really is nothing from our main character, but you learn a little bit more about some of the side characters from the series. You learn a little bit more about what happened throughout book 6. Some of the side stories that were not covered in book 6, one of them is covered as part of the novella. Again, nothing you need in order to continue with the story, but if you started to love the characters, they pop up again in the novella. So it really adds a little bit more color to the story. And just because Kristen Britain's writing style is just so beautiful, if you just don't get enough of it, definitely check out the novella as well. And that gets me to the next point. One thing that I love so much about the series is Kristen Britain's writing style. So I've read the first 4 books in German. That's how I got introduced to it years back. And then Starting with book 5, unfortunately, they weren't translated anymore. But since I now live in the US, it didn't matter anyway. So I continued then in English, and my reread that I just did, I read them all in English, and actually book 1 till 4 for the first time in English. And either way, both in German and in English, the language, the words used, the way she structures the sentences, it's so beautiful. The way she describes the scenery, the way she lets you experience the characters, their emotions, what they struggle through, what they just go through on a regular basis. It's incredible. There was not one situation in the book, and I'm not even exaggerating, there was not one situation in the book where I was like, okay, this is totally weird what you're doing here. There are no repetitions in the sentences. She just uses the perfect words at the right time, and it's just beautiful. I don't even know how else to describe it. But yeah, she definitely knows how to get you sucked into the story and keep you there and not letting you go, and how to ache for the characters and how to just root for everyone. It's just incredible. One of the other things why I like the series is there's also a very light romance story happening in there. So it's very innocent. Because Kerrigan is younger, right? So she starts when she's 16, and then several years progress. So I think in Winterlight she's in her mid-20s. So there's some very soft and low-key romance. And as you get to know the world, you also know why, right? It's still medieval times, so it's still all very innocent. I know not everybody loves romance stories. Just know there is one, but it's not on your face and all the time, right? It's part of Kerrigan's life. I've heard some people say that the love story takes quite a center stage in book 2 and 3, I think. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it really depends on how much love you like. It's not like Sarah J. Maas or some other YA books that I've read recently that are really heavy on romance because it's actually a romance fantasy story. This is really not the case here. The focus is on the Green Riders, on the messenger service, on Kerrigan as a character, and the love story is kind of a part of it. It's not the main focus in any of the books. Again, my opinion on that. So now I talked a bunch about the pros and what I really like about the series itself and why I think everybody should read it. Let me just talk about some of the things that I acknowledge while reading the series that I especially realized after rereading the series pretty much one after another. So this is not, I don't think, is a bingeable series. I don't think you can sit down and read all 7 books plus the novella in one go, one after another. And the reason why is, remember the books have been written, it started in 1998, and just now book 7 comes out. So there have been quite the gaps between each book. So in order to make it then easier for readers to get back into the story, especially at the beginning, she is repeating things that have happened before. She's explaining some of the characters again. She's explaining the magic system again. Not in super detail, but I realized that after reading now 1 book a month, I was able to skip over some paragraphs where I was like, okay, I just read it in the other book. I know how the magic system works. I don't have to continue with that. So that's the only thing that I find a bit tricky now that you have already that many books out there. Frankly, that's the only thing that I could say as a negative thing about the series. That's all. I truly love her writing. I truly love the way she set up the world, the story, the characters, the cultures. There's so much depth to this series. She really thought through, with all the different cultures that we get to know throughout the series, she has a backstory to all of them. She really goes into where are all of those characters coming from? Where are those cultures coming from? Why are they clashing with that culture? Because, So she really did an amazing job on setting up this world, setting up the people in there, and giving you a complete view of what is going on. So anyway, that is my quick review of the Green Rider series. I hope I got you excited. Definitely go take a look at the series. Try book 1. And if you like it, try book 2. And if you like that, try the next one and then maybe the next one. And I think it will really add something truly unique to your fantasy reading experience. And then I hope once you read it, we can completely gush about the series, or you can tell me what you didn't like. and we can have a nice discussion about why you're wrong. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my Green Rider review. Again, let me know if you want to have spoiler reviews for all the books as well. I definitely am planning on doing one for book 7 later in September, once several people had a chance to actually read it. And then, yeah, I hope I'll see you with my next video, and you have a great rest of your day. Bye!